show up on my end as private, but we'll see. And once I get the link, I'll go back to Facebook and post it. So. Boom. That's live. Give me the link. Give me the link. Share. There we go. Where am I going? Okay. I don't know if anybody's even tuned in yet, but if you are here, we're here too. We're not frozen. Your screen's not frozen. We're gonna get going in a second. Just dropping links for people to follow on YouTube and all that good stuff.
Going to the YouTube channel too, which is live, and we have 5 people watching.
Link.
All right, Pragmatic Crystal, how you doing?
Pragmatic Crystal is in the house.
Damien Kuzmik, hi, greetings and blessings. I wonder if that's the same guy who said it last time. Okay.
Contemplating. It's so funny. I just had a conversation with a brother who we were in the faith together. We were actually even in ministry together. And this brother is on his way out. He's out actually. And he was actually talking about coming out of the faith feeling like a second metamorphosis for him. The first metamorphosis was becoming a Christian, because to be honest, that actually, let me go ahead and drop this link. I'm sorry. I haven't dropped this link on Facebook yet.
Wow, it's not letting me sign into YouTube. Okay. I think perhaps. Let's see.
Okay, that's that. Yeah, but this brother was saying, like, first coming to the faith was like, and I can even concur. Coming to the faith was like, it was, yes, I was saved from something. I was brought out of, it felt like I was being taken out of darkness and into light. It's weird how this happens, because now after 30 years in the faith, that now seems like darkness. And there's another level of enlightenment. Like, okay, the God concept got me to stop, being self-destructive. This idea of me being made in the image of God, I don't want to destroy me or other people. And it was very useful. Got me to change my lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And then now coming out of that, it's like, okay, it was useful for what it was useful for, but got to break that cocoon. You got to come out of there and grow some wings, and it's time to fly now. So I'll be very curious to see how the discussion goes on as we begin to talk about some of that stuff. And Jay Witt, you know who I'm talking about, because he told me that he spoke with you. Okay.
Spoke to him today,
yeah. Great convo, right? Like just to see somebody in that state, in that place.
Oh yeah.
I know I'm out. Now I got to figure out how I'm going to tell everyone else that I'm out.
Yeah, it was
Um,
interesting checking out his passion, because it's like me personally, I felt like I'm kind of like, of course I had to play Fly Now, going to Fly Now, the old Rocky theme. Going to Fly Now, you just said it, you know. Anyway, but needless to say, I was, yeah, peeping his passion. And I remember it's like, wow, it's like, you know, like looking back on your former conversion experience and realizing, wow, that was me at one point, you know. I was super passionate. You know, when you realize what you believe the truth to be, whatever, you have a hard time if you share that truth with some person,
mhm.
and it's hard to imagine that person being totally unaffected by it if it turns your whole world upside.
Yeah.
And I got that feeling from him. Now, of course, now, you know,
Hmm.
over 10 years into it, I'm pretty used to being able to tell just the impossibility of the science of the flood narrative or
Hmm.
whatever else. And these things turn my world upside down. And I've stared people in the face while telling them these things, and there was just no sparks happening on their end. And it took me a while to realize
Yeah.
that it just isn't going to have that
Hmm.
effect on
Yeah.
some people. It's just like, you know, the person using kryptonite on Superman, they are unaffected by the kryptonite. You know,
Right.
Superman, he's like, you know, he's weak and he's ready to die, you know.
I remember when I first began to, people would come to me and they would say, okay, just share me just the top three things that made you deconvert. And I would begin, like, I remember having to like go through a Rolodex of which ones can I share to get the effect that are going to have the effect on them that it had on me. And I'm going through
Hmm.
the Rolodex of, I'm going to talk about the light, God creating light before the sun in Genesis 1, or I'm going to
Hmm.
talk about Israel borrowing creation myths from other people, or I'm going to talk about, and then like you said, you lay them out there and you kind of like wait for it, and it's just like they look at you like that's it, that's what made you.
Yeah. It makes me think. It makes me think of. I don't know if you've ever seen these arrest videos when they grab the taser and they tase a guy and he just pulls the taser things off and he's just like, all right. He's like, what? What the hell is going on here? This guy's totally unaffected by the fact that he's being tased. You know, it's like I'm tasing you with biblical like non-facts, and you're just like ripping the tasers off, and you're just walking around like
Yeah.
nothing is happening here, you
Yeah.
know? So yeah,
uh
man.
well, think about how many times, if you ever shared your faith as a Christian, there are times when you shared your faith with
Hmm.
people. I remember when I was when my dad, it was so funny, as I was coming out of the faith, my dad was coming into the faith.
Okay.
And I was doing Bible studies with him, sort of just to see, like, okay, maybe I can regrow my faith if I watch the lightning strike him. Like if I share the gospel with him and he catches fire, maybe I'll like catch the secondhand smoke of his fire for God.
Yeah.
And I remember I had
You're
a
hot boxing.
yeah.
Yeah.
I, I remember I had the Message Bible. I was trying to get something that would like break it all the way down for my dad. And I was reading with him. And I don't know if it was John 3:16 or if it was some verse that I was so used to hearing it in the old kind of King James's kind of language. And it always did it for me. And I
Mhm.
just knew when I got to that passage for my dad, it was going like, hit him. And we got to the passage and we read it. And I kind of looked up, like waiting to see the tears in his eyes,
Mhm.
and it did nothing.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, man.
I was like, man, like,
Yeah.
so is it possible? This was back in like 2017, 2018. Is it possible that what I'm expecting to happen to him, the thing that happened to me, is it really just social, psychological, conditioning? Are we conditioned to respond certain ways? Almost like your favorite movie. You tell somebody, you haven't seen E.T., you haven't seen The Matrix, you haven't seen whatever it is. And then you
Mm-hmm.
watch it with them, waiting for it to hit, and it doesn't do it for them. Like, it doesn't have to be born from above for it to have done something life-changing for you. When you
Mm-hmm.
see it not change someone else's life, it makes you have to reckon with, well, damn, maybe it wasn't a miracle. Maybe it
Yeah.
wasn't the thing I kept saying it had to be. Maybe it was just where I was at the time, and it did
You
what
know,
it did for me at that time.
I'm willing to give some latitude to the Christian on this one though, because I
Okay.
know they could say, well, hey, some to as many as were called, you know, who he gave the power to become
Mm,
the sons of God. Those are the individuals that become. So I could totally see them
yeah.
weaseling their way out of these
Yeah.
kinds of things.
Well, why
That's why
couldn't
I
we
think
say the same thing? I mean, not that we have a supernatural appeal, but to the people who do get it, when we do share, hey, this is what made me say, you know, I don't think this is God anymore. I don't, and the people who get that, like, so what do you say about that? Is there something also divine there? Is there a
I don't know
reverse
that
divine call?
I don't know if I've seen that kind of fruit in my life because when I left, you know, me sharing what I believed and
Mm-hmm.
what I had come to see was mainly just me validating my position. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so there was a part of it wasn't so
Mm.
much of me trying to
Convince
proselytize for
somebody.
this
Yeah.
new position.
Yeah.
It was more me just trying to show people, like, all right, I'm not just some bugged out dude. It wasn't that
Mm.
I had some immoral plan. Nah, this just
Well, you
doesn't
know
make
what?
sense.
I actually can see that because I've talked to several people this month. I'm still doing life after faith interviews with people at least twice a week. Got a lot of great life after faith interviews coming. And I heard a few people who said to me, like reading my book or watching stuff on our podcast, but it wasn't like, this is to your point, it wasn't like they heard us say something that made them say, oh, I need to rethink everything. It was more like you said, what we were saying was sort of validating things that had already been percolating in their own souls. They
Yeah.
were already questioning, they already had doubts, they already had. So yeah, I don't know if it's possible to unproselytize somebody who's committed to a faith, that you could share something that's going to make them say, well, I'm going to drop this now. You know, they almost have to be already questioning, already on
Yeah.
the road for
Yeah.
these kind of things to resonate with them.
Yeah. Like I said, most of my sharing was just because when you're on the inside, it's literally like North Korea. Like
Mm,
they're using propaganda. They're telling you, like, the people on the outside. When I say they, I'm talking people within church circles. They're telling you folks who are on the outside are fools. The fool has said in his heart that there is no God.
mm,
So immediately when you announce, "Hey, I'm now embracing the viewpoint of a person on the outside," a
mm.
bunch of your friends are like, "Ah, that's just foolishness." So for me, I guess there was just a certain amount of pride I had. I was like, "Oh, you're not about to just call me a fool." Like that. Whatever is going to go down. It's not going to be that. Like, I'm going to, like, if anybody's going to walk away from here thinking they're a fool, it's going to be you, because how do you believe? Boom, boom,
Mm,
boom, 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 and then you
mm.
let off all of the clips and the gun, and then the person is just sitting there looking at you like, "Yeah, this the God's foolishness is greater than man's wisdom, whatever." You know what I mean?
Well,
Like,
yeah, yeah. I think that's why I wanted this segment of what we do to go a different way. I
mm,
like watching, folks like Dillahunty and watching the, people call in to debate or try to prove their faith. Maybe we'll have some of that at some point. I don't know, but I don't know if I want to be sitting here trying to convince somebody who's obstinate the other way, as opposed to the person that's like, nah, I think I there are people who before you even say much, they're like, I think I'm where you are. I just don't know how to say it yet.
yeah,
I
and
think,
we
yeah.
said that we talked about that on the phone,
Mm-hmm.
like the importance of, like, when you it's like when you eat really good food, it's like, oh, taste and see that's what is good, right? Like when you experience something that is pretty amazing, it's pretty hard to not, like, share it with someone else,
Yeah.
and just having another person around to say, hey,
Mm-hmm.
you know, Yeah, man, I agree. And I saw that. Oh, it's just having that community, that person
Hmm.
that you can speak to and
Yeah.
that can relate to where you're coming from.
Hmm.
That's so important, and that's what you're robbed of by via excommunication,
Hmm.
um, or sort of via your old life and
Yeah.
your excommunication. Because depending on what kind of Christian you are, a lot of Christians they kind of rig life in such a way where most of your friends are on the inside with you,
Yeah.
so that you don't have many friends on the outside. So that when you leave, I don't know if it's engineered this way on purpose,
Hmm.
but you really, where do you? It's like I think of the passage, and he says, "Where else?" When Christ is like, "Oh, you guys aren't going to leave too." He says, "Where else can we go? You have the eternal life." It's like
Yeah.
you have nowhere else to go, um, but to just come back to the fold
Yeah.
because you haven't built a life inside of that. But
Well,
one of the
there's a, go ahead.
I should let you go.
Well, I was going to
I
say
appreciate
there's a usness to it that really does matter. I posted something on my Facebook today advertising this,
it. Mhm,
and I changed my language because I realized the power in us. So the first part of my caption said, how people say them, and then they'll say what they say, and then they'll
mhm,
say me. Here's what I say.
mhm,
So the first part of the caption said them. God never promised to answer all your questions. That's what people are saying.
mhm,
The next part was going to say me. And that was going to be my response to that. I said, no, let me stop saying me because it's not me, it's us.
mhm.
And so the response came from us. There's a group of us saying,
The ecclesia.
yeah, the called out of the called out ones.
Yo, that could have been the name of this joint.
It could. But the us is saying, to that, they say God never promised to answer all your questions. Well, we say, what if my only question is, how come all of the things God has answered don't make any sense? It's
Mhm,
more powerful coming from us than just from me. And I used
mhm.
to say that about, as a Christian rapper, I used to say, like, we are not out to, you don't counter a culture with a person, you counter a culture with a counterculture. And so we
Yeah.
tried to create a counterculture. Well, in the same way, the person who's part of the ecclesia, the called out of the from the church now,
Of the called
the
out.
called out of the called out, you can't really change a culture when it's just you. People
No,
don't want to
no.
convert to you, they want to
Yeah.
convert to a community.
And now, see, now, so there's that bit of the argumentum ad populum there.
Mm.
It's like, oh, you think you got? I'm thinking back to when you came out with your book. What's he going to drop? You know what I'm saying? Like he's going to drop something after all these hundreds of years, and we have the church. We strong. We're here. We're going to be here. What do you? It's sort of like the whole world. It's basically an argument they're making. It's like, oh, I got this brother. I got this brother. We have all of this whole community. He's coming to us with a book with talking about science. What science? I think it was a guy who said that on the
Yeah,
pod.
yeah.
He's like, what is science? Like, what is science? It's like, bro, science is what you're talking on. like you're on the freaking internet, my guy. Like science is giving you that ability.
Mm.
So it's like that might lead to one of the clips that we should listen
Yeah,
to
I'm
today.
actually
But
queuing it
it's
up right now.
yeah,
Oh no,
because it's
no, I'm
like,
queuing up something else. But go ahead.
but the idea is almost this kind of thing of like, you know, you're fine with science wherever we've talked about this a ton of times, wherever it corroborates what you're already claiming. But whenever it does clash with your claims, then the thing is, so you telling me, like you telling me, like after all of these glorious truths, he's letting this go
Mm,
for for science? Like
mm,
this is what as if as though that's a small thing.
right,
It's it's
right.
it's an interesting it's an interesting take, but it's a necessary take. It's actually um I think of like a raccoon, a rabbit raccoon that you cornered that's striking out or something. Like that's what's going on. When they get cornered by the difficult questions, then it becomes an attack. You
Mm,
know, the defense becomes an offense,
yeah,
so
yeah.
mhm.
What's up, folks? I see Miss Candy in the house. Always appreciate y'all coming through. Transview back in effect from last week.
Mhm.
There's a
Yeah,
few
it's good
folks
to
I've
see
been
you.
kicking it with offline. That's been
Mhm.
great. Um, hey, we definitely want to go into a couple of videos that we want to react to, respond to. We're going to be having an eye in the chat for if there's anybody out there who's saying, I am looking at that front door. I am looking for an exit strategy. We're going to be dropping little things tonight that just kind of, here's what you need to be thinking about if you're thinking about making your way out of the faith, or why you should be thinking about it if you're not thinking about it. Right now, we're just talking about, okay, if you do come out of the faith, what are you coming into? Is there community? Why do we need community? One question I asked one of my Christian friends, another guy that I was in ministry with for a very long time, I asked him, if you woke up tomorrow morning and everybody that you know, every Christian that you know was saying, you know what, we were wrong. This is not true. And you were the only Christian in the world left, would you still believe? Would you still follow Jesus? I had no idea what he was going to say. He actually surprised me and said, if every other Christian in the world were to, this person said, he didn't say he would stop following Jesus, but he said, I would have to reevaluate some things. Like, just to be honest, I would have to rethink, like, well, why are they all saying that? Because maybe they're seeing something that I don't see. And what that, I mean, the humility just in that response. Why was that response reasonable? Because our Constitution is such that we receive validation. We get third party, or at least something like objective verification from outside of ourselves.
Hey,
And the
Brady,
very, yeah.
like if you see a crowd of people that run, you don't even have to know what they're running from, right?
Right.
Right. I'm piggybacking. Like
Yeah.
if I'm walking down the street and the direction I'm walking in, I see a bunch of people running from that direction, I'm turning around. Like
You don't even
I'm
have to know if
asking.
there's anything there. You're taking your cue from, this is the social setting that I'm in. There must
Yep.
be something.
I will figure it out as I'm running with them what I'm
Right.
running from.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, like, you got to ask yourself, I know you believe you've had these experiences, maybe God spoke to you or this blessing came through, you prayed and this happened, but you got to ask yourself, how much of your faith is contingent upon, well, they all said it's true, so they can't all be wrong. How much of your faith is based on the testimony of other people? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
what is the Bible if not the testimony of other people
Mm-hmm.
you've never met?
I hear the antagonist saying, "Hey, when you believe in science, you're doing the same thing." They like this kind of game of
Mm-hmm.
equivocation and so forth.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we don't need to go get involved in those arguments. We just have to. I know, Brady, you don't care to entertain those opposing thoughts, but I always
Well,
feel
no,
like
no,
I
no.
need to
I like that.
mention it.
I like that opposing thought because I think that's worth considering. If somebody were to say that, the one thing I like about that objection, I think it's a good one, except for the thing about what science, the scientific method yields, is if
Mhm,
I cared enough, I could become a geneticist. I could become a biologist. I could become an astrophysicist.
mhm,
I could run those tests myself. So
mhm.
me trusting someone to do it for me and say, that's what you come to, and you're not the only one. There's a field of, and
Brady, you gotta load up the video. Like there's a
which one?
video. There's a
Which
okay. I now
which
you make now you make now you make me now
which
you're
video are you
making
talking
me
about?
all right. I'm gonna check it down. I'm gonna check it down. Let me see. Uh, okay, so it's not that one. Um, let's see. I'm looking now. Is like what the point? Okay, so there's the. Let me see what the number is.
You want to
So
just
it should
well,
no the last
oh,
three
you know what?
letters.
You know what? Hold on. Because I forgot I'm watching this on YouTube, but I need to be back on Zoom so we can share screens and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, are you on Zoom? Are you opening it up?
Yes. I'm gonna open it up now so
Okay,
you can share your screen.
so I can share my screen.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
You
So
don't want to
what I
do
have
that?
to? No, no. All right. So let me see. Give me a second. Give me a second. I don't know how this is going to work because what is the sound gonna come from the computer?
It should. Um, or unless you want me to just go ahead and find it and play it from mine?
I think it would be easier if you did that first.
Okay, so I got to go to the
I think
Dropbox.
that would
Sorry,
be
guys. We had videos queued up, but I don't know
yeah.
which one he's actually talking about. So I gotta
I
find
know
that video.
I can give you the numbers. The last letters in the video title are FDG.
All right, give me a sec. So we are talking about, talking about science and talking about having the
Yeah.
ability to do the science so that I'm not
Yes, and
just trusting by faith.
this is totally relevant to the video. I didn't even know. Look at the Holy Spirit leading us, man. Look at the Spirit leading us, brother. Like I didn't even know you were going to say that, but this
So
lines
hold on.
right up with it.
I see Dan
So
McClellan videos. I see.
it's FDG. It's the one that ends in FDG before the MP4. The last three letters are FDG. Yeah.
Um, it's in the exit strategy folder.
Yep. Yep. Let me go in there myself now so I could.
Um, for whatever reason, I'm not able to see more than the first four videos.
Well, okay. So can you see what he's wearing? If you can see what he's
All I
wearing, that's
see is
fine.
Dan McClellan videos and the other guy from TikTok. I don't see.
Yeah. Okay. So Dan McClellan, he's wearing a tan shirt on this. If you can see the thumbnail, then that does it. That'll do the job. He's wearing a tan shirt.
I'm gonna have to download it before I play it.
Oh, really? That
Yeah.
would have had to be the same thing here, but it's a
Okay.
short video, so
Okay.
quick fix.
I'm downloading it now, and it's done downloading.
Yeah,
So that was quick.
yeah,
Let's
yeah.
hope
It's a
this is the
minute
right
and 20
one
seconds.
because the way it's set up on mine, I can't see the end of the title. It's just a long
Okay. Well,
and then
they're
dot
all
dot dot.
equally short, so
Okay.
it'll be easy. Okay, so let's see what.
We'll be right with you, folks. Give us 1 second. How do I do this? I need to pull up the download. But you can finish. You can go ahead and do whatever setup you want
This
while
is
I
the
get this
first.
video
This is the
ready.
first time we've done a live and played
Yeah.
something on it. Yeah.
Um. All right, I'm pulling it up now. I'm going to share.
It'll be a little bit more seamless next time around.
Or so we hope. Let's not make promises we can't keep.
But we have a couple of videos to go through. So let's see.
All right,
But
I'm
this
going to
one is relevant.
share. Tell me if you see Dan pop up on the screen.
All right, I will. Start sharing screen. Yes, he's there. That's the
Okay.
video. So you got it.
All right. Now let me just make sure that my volume is good. Share sound. All right. So this is Dan McClellan. Let's see what he has to say here.
So let me reiterate what you were saying when the thought came. What you were just saying was you can actually become an astrophysicist or you can become a geologist or something to investigate it personally firsthand. That's you said that's the difference. Now,
Mhm.
play this video. We'll see. You'll see
Okay.
Hey everybody, somebody made a statement in a video that was not directed to me, but was about me, and I wanted to respond to that statement.
This kind of people, I don't bow down to people because of college degree. I go in the Bible. They have the same Bible as I got. I don't need to be able to read Greek and Hebrew, which I have interlinear Bibles, and I study a little bit, but you don't need to understand Greek and Hebrew to understand the Bible.
This is 100% accurate. You do not need to know Greek or Hebrew or Aramaic to understand your Bible. You just need other people to understand Greek and Hebrew and Arabic. You just have to trust that they made competent text critical decisions about which readings and which manuscripts to prioritize in bringing together their critical text. And you just need to trust that they adequately understood the literary and the historical and the rhetorical context so that they could adequately interpret those texts. And you just need to trust that they could make competent decisions about how to render those passages passages in the language that you understood so that you could come the closest to understanding what the original authors were trying to communicate. And if you don't know Greek and Hebrew and Aramaic, or historical criticism or textual criticism or rhetorical criticism, then you have no way of interrogating the competency of those people in whom you have placed
Come on
them.
here.
You can just blindly place that trust in them. And I'm willing to bet that the vast majority of people who just blindly place their trust in some Bible translation do so primarily because that translation either is authoritative within their tradition or is the translation that most resonates with their tradition, which means the biblical texts are not the ultimate authority. The tradition is the ultimate authority, and the biblical texts.
Yikes.
Yeah, man. So I didn't mean to cut you off, but you were right on the same track with that guy. I was like, let's get it in. Like, what do you think? What are your thoughts, Brady?
Oh yeah, I mean, he's hitting on everything that pushed me away from the faith back in 2014, 2015. You know, all those different dials that have to be turned, from the language to the grammar to the historical context to the author intent. So, you know, turn those dials little by little, and you come up with a million different readings for one text. But to say to the person that's, I don't need to know all that. Yeah, someone's got to know that, and whoever that person is who is claiming to know that, you either are going to have to trust them or you're going to have to go do that science yourself. And so, yeah, I think that's a perfect way to sum up that whole idea. In terms of what are you trusting, who are you trusting, and why are you trusting them? As opposed to having something where even if you were to like trust your Bible translators to give you the right interpretation, the right translation of a text, you still have only got what those people thought at that time. You can't go back and do the relationship with God that they had to see whether or not a bush ever really burned or commandments. You can't do that part of the.
Well, I mean, in a lot of this, he has another video that I put in there that hopefully we'll get around to, where he talks about one of the other problems is a lot of people approach the text assuming that it's a univocal voice.
Yes, I love that video. I've seen that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's actually a composite. You know, it's a compilation of different texts from different eras. You know, I mean, we're talking hundreds of years apart at times. Just people who had vastly different ideas about the deity or deities that they were worshiping. So, you know, when you come to it and you come to this harmonizing tradition and you're looking at it like it's a univocal voice, that's another huge problem. So, I mean, it's more or less, it's similar to when we did the episode on why revelation from God is impossible. And we were talking about how, given the terms that revelation has come unto us, supposed revelation, and the kinds of deceptions that are happening within it, there is no way to vet the thing you have in your hand. You know, there's no way to know if it's the result of the same sort of, you know, chicanery that is being described in the text.
Right.
So yeah, you know, it really, if you think, that's not to say the statement we were making isn't that it is it's a farce. We just said there's no way that you can be confident it isn't a farce. Now, those are two different, distinctively different
How about that?
thoughts.
How about that?
I mean, it could very well not be a farce, but there's no way for me to vet. There's no way for me to know that.
Yeah. It's not falsifiable. That's the thing we always talk about. It's unfalsifiable. And the second you have something that's unfalsifiable, like, what do you do with that? How do you put trust in that? And for the person who's watching, like, man, I don't, like, is that all it is? Is that, like, somebody said the other day, they defended their Christian position in a conversation with me and said, I'm dying from 1,000 cuts. And they thought the 1,000 cuts was their 1,000 little defenses. And I said to them, what you don't realize is the very fact that you have to make 1,000 little defenses, those are the 1,000 cuts that you're bleeding from. Like, the fact that you need to do all these apologetics, like, it wasn't one big thing for me. Well, I guess there was one big thing, was evolution at first. But all that did was expose all the 1,000 other little cuts, 10,000 other little cuts that made the logic of scripture just leak out. And it died in a pool of illogical blood as I'm sitting there looking at it like, man, like it's that to me is what?
No. The brother who you and I both spoke to on different occasions today, he actually told me something along the lines of, he said he wasn't at atheism.
Yeah.
And I told him, I was like, again, I'm not out here proselytizing, you know? I'm not like Paul. I don't think that everybody should be as I am, you know? I just, not in every sense of my belief. I just think that we should be able to reject nonsense that is apparently nonsense as such. And that's all. This, you know, like whether he lands where as an agnostic, if some sort of spiritual person, some person who has, that's fine. As long as those beliefs are spoken of in a non-authoritative way.
Yeah.
To me, like, so if you believe in some sort of element that is, like you say, non-falsifiable, but you recognize and you speak of it as, yes, this is my opinion or subjective, and this is helping me, is helpful to me, that's fine. I mean, it's, I know that there are some hard-nosed atheists who would say, well, that's the seed of anti-intellectualism, and that's the problem. But that's not my, I have no contention with that, and I have no intention on arbitrating that or fighting that particular battle with people to try to like knock all irrational thought to the, all I'm saying is, and when I say irrational thought, I'm saying thoughts about things, or beliefs, I should say, beliefs that you can't legitimize. Because I think there is some element of that in all of us. That's the other thing. We've never really even spoken about this super transparently. But yeah, I believe on some level, every one of us has some belief that we might not, it's more intuitive, we can't necessarily, but long as they are spoken of as such.
Right.
I think that's the difference. It's one thing to have a belief that, hey, this is just the way I believe. I kind of just gravitate toward this intuitively, but I know it might not necessarily be the case. Now, that's a totally different thing than claiming that
once you hold it that way, you wouldn't preach it to anyone else.
Yeah, exactly.
You might not even offer it to anyone else. You might just keep it for yourself, and you know it comes up in conversation as opposed to having this mandate that they've got to believe this too.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm sure some people, you talked about it some, just the whole idea that, like, if you really think of how silly this whole idea is, like, you're going to go to hell because you don't believe. Like, what? Like, this is just a really stupid idea. This is really some of the, we have really bad ideas that humanity is going. This is definitely one of them. Now, granted, I'm sure it was arrived at because logically, after you come from the belief, then you end up having to run a government, and you got to be able to punish people. So you need laws, and so ultimately, they have to believe in the fake deity in order to have the structure in the society that keeps things in order. So it's not just you have to believe these things, not for the initial people who believed it. It was a necessary function of how to structure a society.
Yeah.
But now in our society that is largely secular here in the West, or whatever you want to call it, it's literally like a tailbone. You know, this is a vestigial remnant of a point in history where there was no separation, there was no difference, there was no secular government and in a religious institution. They were one and the same, like most of humanity had for most of history. But now we're recognizing it as essentially a tailbone. It's a vestige of a era that's gone by. I'm sorry.
No, but I mean, even in saying that, like, are you saying though that this vestigial tailbone, like, do you think religion will ever really take on that characteristic where it's that rare and that's relied upon?
Restate that. So you said where it's that
like,
rare,
right? Like, yeah, upon? Like the vestigial tailbone. You know, if that is a leftover from yesteryear, our old body plans, no one's thinking about the tailbone and what it used to do and trying to make it still do that. Like, will religion ever become that far gone of a thought?
Well, seeing the predictions in the Bible fall flat, I'm definitely not going to be one to try to predict the future. I think I'm going to do one better than the Bible. I don't know what's going to happen to humanity in the future.
Yeah.
But the fact that we can, I think it's telling that we're both sending um, satellites into space and people into space, and people are holding on to books that are telling them fables simultaneously. I think it shows you the sort of cognitive dissonance and disconnect that is going on in a lot of people's heads. And if these two things can coexist in a society, like we're screaming toward, we're right now we've got tens of people in our lives, right? Streaming wherever they are on the planet. They're hearing us more or less immediately. But at the same time, you have people telling people to believe in an invisible God and give up a tenth of their income to this person, and raise their kids with all kinds of just ridiculous beliefs, and these things are simultaneous.
Yeah.
We're having like legitimate debates about whether or not a society should treat individuals as secondhand citizens who are gay, etc., whatever. I mean, while we are able to perform open heart surgery and brain surgery and all kinds of other things, I think if anything, that these are great illustrations as to the ability of humanity's the resilience of really stupid ideas from the past.
Yeah.
I think this is proof that,
you like that word stupid, though, you know that?
Yeah, I do. I actually have a penchant for the word stupid.
Well, no, I mean, I see in the chat they're talking about things like the flood and the flat earth and whether or not science can be trusted. There is something to be said for these ideas from the past and just how deep rooted they are in the psyche of society, such that, like you said, we're sending satellites into space, and yet people are still talking about things that a biblical writer could have never even fathomed, let alone taken into their worldview. If a biblical writer would have, if they were able to look through a telescope or a microscope as we can, it would have blown their fucking minds to have to go back and look at the things that they're writing, what they think is beyond the clouds. First of all, they think there's a dome in the sky.
Yeah, you're never going to win that argument with these guys.
They think they think windows have to be open for it to rain, and that just on the other side of that dome is God's throne. Give them a telescope. Let them send up a satellite, and then ask them to write their scriptures again and see if they don't tell a different story.
The friend I was arguing with doesn't even believe we're sending telescopes up to the sky. Remember, I told you he's a Christian. I thought that talking about the dubious science of the Old Testament, talking about the sun standing still, and how that conflicts with our understanding of cosmology, contemporary understanding of things. And he's basically, like we were discussing earlier, to bring things full circle, he's looking at you with a look like that ain't hitting the way it hit for you. And his response is essentially, yeah, the earth is basically flat. The earth is flat. And I was like, here's a man who's a brilliant mathematician. Yeah. And I find myself suddenly debating whether or not the earth is flat, and the fact that it was just a crazy conversation. And I really and it all went back to the fact that the Bible spoke of the world in certain ways that he thought in his interpretive model he couldn't get around. And so therefore, rather than go with he used to see the science, the scientists don't want you to believe. So they're saying things that contradict with the
So should we go to the MacArthur video off of that?
Absolutely.
You sent that to me or no?
That one you got it was in the chat with you.
Oh, hold on. Give me a second.
So you got to bring up that link.
Yeah.
But yeah, while he's pulling up that link, guys, yeah, the guy, he just bit it's like you think you have the silver bullet to kill the werewolf or something, and then like he just absorbs it. It was like it just didn't work. It was like, all right, well, I don't have anything left. I don't have any other ammo left for you, man. If we're in the year 2023 and you're debating a flat Earth, something that was dealt with centuries ago, and you're now resurrecting it because of your belief in the literal interpretation of certain scriptures. I mean, really, is this a conversation that you can even win? Yeah. He
Was that a
said, y'all
while ago?
need Google Docs. Yeah. Well, the problem is, we have basically ongoing chats throughout the week. Sometimes we drop in things related to the pod. Sometimes we're just dropping in other funny things, whatever. And so that's happening via text. And I didn't aggregate everything. I didn't take the things that maybe you want me to just drop it in the Dropbox. I can do that now.
Well, I found it now, so.
You found it? Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I guess you could say we try to keep this thing real spontaneous and maybe a little too spontaneous instead of lining them all up.
Yeah.
But we didn't know how.
I actually had planned to have all this stuff kind of sorted out before we got on tonight, but I got a call from a brother who's in the middle of a deconversion. Just before we got on, we had spent a good bit of time on the phone. So rather than prepare to get this stuff together, I was sort of just hearing his brother out and walking him through how to even come out of the prayer closet as an unbeliever. So that's what sort of helped me up tonight.
Yeah. I just like certain, I'm seeing a comment by Yario where he says, it's crazy that no one here has seen anything outside of the images provided to them by NASA. I don't find that crazy at all. Where else the hell are we supposed to get the images from? Anyway, I'm not gonna, like I said, this is not a debate. Like, I'm definitely not. There are certain things I refuse to debate. I'm not debating flat Earths. I'm not debating geocentric universe kind of stuff. I'm just not going to do it. It's like those are conversations that's for another person. I'm also not debating presuppositionalism or any kind of bastard child of presuppositionalism. I'm just not here for that. I'm not here for those kinds of conversations. We're targeting people who are of like mind, people who may be of like mind and still on the inside, but unsure. They can see. I remember when I left because of the what he said. Christ said it would be better that a millstone were when he said then that you offend the least of them. I guess they might say that true of us, but I'm trying to think of there is a certain where Paul says a certain passage where he says, you know, turn them over to Satan, basically. So that basically your body could be destroyed and your soul will be saved. When you're thinking, when you believe these passages and you're on the inside and you're considering leaving, but let me reword that. You're starting to not believe. There's a certain kind of trial going on in your head, and you're like, what if I'm wrong? In the fact that I didn't have an Ichabod back in the day that I could turn on and see, like, oh, this guy did it 10 years ago, and he's making a whole lot of sense, and he's laughing at some of the nonsense that I currently was holding to that I'm ready to let go. That might actually embolden. It might give me a little courage and let me see that this is on the heels of what Brady was talking about earlier in terms of community. It's so important for you to see that because when you're on the inside, they make you feel like if you turn your back on this, you know, even that passage, you know, that's interesting. Where he's like, where else are we going to go? Brady, that could be one for the pod, man. It's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, who's the target audience with the passage like that when he's saying that? You know, are you going to leave too? It's just like to make the people who are inside feel like they no, they're not going to abandon. It's almost like turning him into a victim. Like, are you also going to leave the Lord?
Hey, you know what? I rather than doing the John MacArthur one, I feel like I probably want to do this TikTok one with the brother that's talking about.
Did you queue up those videos, John, or is it too hard? I
queued it up, but it's a 9-minute video, and I don't want to have to dance through it.
Okay, all right, we could do that next time.
Okay, so I'm gonna put up the one from I don't even know this guy's name, but he's a TikToker.
Yeah, this will be your first time seeing it, right?
Yeah, Yeah.
This will be
So we'll watch this together. Everybody who's out there. I'm sharing my screen. You want to set this up any kind of way or just go right into it?
Just put it in. Just put it in. Let's see it. The whole audience, we all be watching this together.
Okay. So this is the black guy with glasses, right?
Yep. We'll all be watching it, basically reacting to it spontaneously.
Okay. So share my screen. Tell me when you see it.
I see it.
Okay. Make sure my sound is being shared. All right, here it goes.
What's your take on homosexuality is kind of insane. I'm not going to. Do I think it's a sin? No. Do I think it's a natural? No. Do I think it's against what God intended? No. These are humans loving whomever they want to love. I can't see how you could have a problem with that. But I do want to use this comment to talk about maybe the most common question that I ever get on this account behind maybe how do you talk so fast and book Rex ? Which is, what is my relationship with Christianity? Given the fact that I'm radically and unapologetically black and hold a lot of abolitionist views in regards to gender and sexuality, but
Hold on, wait. He's not sped up. He's really talking that fast?
I'm not sure. It sounds like he's talking that fast.
Wow. I thought he was like 2 times the speed or something, but all right, let me go back. Here he goes.
I hold a lot of abolitionist views in regards to gender and sexuality, but the fact that I'm radically and unapologetically which is, what is my relationship with Christianity? Given the fact that I'm radically and unapologetically black and hold a lot of abolitionist views in regards to gender and sexuality, but at the same time you see a cross on my nose and neck. I've been avoiding this question on TikTok for so long because religious discourse on this app is so circular and toxic. But at the same time, I feel like what I have to say about religion is unique and a lot of y'all might resonate, so let's get into it. So quick disclaimer, I didn't just go to church. I went to a black church with tambourines and a Holy Spirit and a choir singing the same song 3 times. That's a church that I went to. My relationship with Christianity is heavily racialized, and by that I mean it's completely contextualized by race and class struggle. What do I mean by that? The value that I see in Christianity is not a credulous regarding of every single book as fact, right? Rather, it's an acknowledgement of the utility that it served for black and working class people in their freedom struggle. So I want to be clear that I'm hyper aware of the fact that if it wasn't for European colonization, I'd definitely not be growing up in a Christian church. And also I'm hyper aware of the fact that organized religion oftentimes reaffirms oppressive structures and traditional values. But I'm also aware of the fact that it served as a beacon of hope for an oppressed group of people that otherwise would have thought that their subordinate position was inescapable. Many of the most radical organizing of black people in the United States occurred in the black church. So if my passion to advocate for better comes from having the proper education and access to be able to read and engage with a bunch of theory, but you who's in a similar oppressed situation but don't have that access to theory can get passion through the church, I don't see why we can't join the freedom fight together. I want to be clear, this take on religion is contingent, and I'm going to repeat it, contingent on your ability to be able to view it critically. Because I rock with his themes of radical humility and community, uplifting the poor, meek, and feeble. But I don't rock with his heteronormativity when people use it to be pro-life, you know what I mean. The best way that I can phrase it is that it's palatable hope for the wretched, and when combined with radicalization can create the environment necessary to foster a revolutionary body.
Wow. Interesting.
A lot, right?
Yeah.
So what's your take? What's your take?
I don't, hold on. Let me get off that screen. Boom. Yeah, he said a lot. He he definitely talks extremely fast. So we got a lot of thoughts in. So I always think with my old Christian mind, like I would have wanted to evangelize someone like him. Basically, he sees the church as a jumping off point for other things that need to happen, because historically that's what the black church served as. It was a place for people who couldn't commune to have community. It was a place for people who they didn't have the right to assemble, as the amendments give us. They didn't have the right to assemble, so they assembled in the church, the only place that they could, and they were able to plot and plan. And even if you go past slavery to the days of Jim Crow and segregation, and plotting revolutionary ideas, or at least nonviolent resistance to oppression and all that happened in the black church. You organized. How are we going to vote? Who are we going to vote for? Who's got our best interest at heart? You did that organizing in the black church. Cool. I always wonder, and this is something I have to read more up on myself, always wonder to what degree people like King were appropriating the black church for its ability to organize, for its ability to galvanize, and how much it was actually legitimate. After this life, I'm going to be in the heaven with the Jesus that I've been reading about. So I don't know. I guess my thoughts upon hearing him. The question I have is, if there was somebody who was like, man, I would deconvert, but this church, this is our best place to to gather. This is our best place to, get ourselves and our thoughts together and our vote together. And I'm almost like, that seems like it seems anachronistic to in 2023 be thinking that we've got to do the same thing that enslaved people were doing during the days of slavery. Like, we don't have any other way to gather ourselves, even with the internet, even with, well, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I don't want to.
Well, I'm just saying, clinging to the Black church because of its historical position or place of this is where we do that at. To me, that's not a good reason to cling to history, but I wouldn't want to make that history part of my present just because this is how we did it in the past. And we're not even doing that today. Like, that's not even what the Black church even is today. It's not the place.
It seems that he wants to put new wine in old wineskins, to use a biblical. And I'm not using it exactly the way.
No, I got you. But
what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying, where do people do that at? Where do people? Maybe I'm not aware of it. Are people still organizing in the Black church? Are they still getting their vote together in the Black church?
Well, for one, I was hoping for well, this is somewhat of a critical breakdown of it, but I think what's going on here is he's essentially acting as an apologist for, he's using a somewhat complex argument to be an apologist for being a person holding on to this institution with all of these things that he thinks are problematic. He's trying to legitimize it. Man, I wanted to look at some of the comments he had in his comment section, because let me see. I'll read it. Here's a comment that got 2,383 likes. It says, "I've been trying to organize this in my brain for so long, and you literally put my exact thoughts into words." Here's another person. Second comment down. "I genuinely love this stance and how you explained it, because this something I struggle. That's sick right there. Because this something I struggle with personally. Appreciate you, bro." Another one. "This is an amazing." I think, no. Let's focus on that one I just read. This person says it's something that they struggle with personally, and that they appreciate him and they like the stance. Why? Because it's an apologetic for being able to embrace this institution that has all of these problematic teachings, or is full of people with these. You see what I'm saying? So he's found a way to synthesize both his thoroughly contemporary secular mindset of, there's nothing wrong with homosexuality, et cetera, and be a churchman with the cross around his neck and that cross in his nose. See, I mean, he's figured out a way to synthesize the two, or to make the two cohesive.
Yeah, I get that, but to me, it just seems like until you address the theological heart of the church, whether you're there for the social activeness of it, or whether you're turned off by its heteronormativity, or whatever it is, that you're still, to me, dancing around the issue of what the church actually is. So I'm left wondering, okay, what about the theology? Like, you can't keep it, even if you try to keep it alive for those external things that you like about it. At its heart, that's not what it is. So what are you actually keeping?
So I think the comment section is telling, because apparently this video, let me see if I can see. So it got 1,355 comments. I don't know what the like ratio was on this, but it got a lot of views. Let's say it got like 500,000 views or whatever. And I think it's important to understand that people can have different views on religion and appreciate your perspective. Every time one of your videos pop up, I somehow end up watching like 11 of them. Love this video. I know you said you held off on filming this video, but I cannot thank you enough for sharing this perspective. I feel like it's given people the logic of karma and justice in the aftermath. So why fight now? When beings are concerned, I'm not sure what this person is trying to say. When beings are cornered, they fight. Okay, that's what he said. Um, uh, the next one says, let's see. I think you could say, so there are some typos in some of these, by the way, so I'm reading through it. I think you could say the same for this, but what about music like Lil Uzi, Cardi, Doja Cat, Bey, etc.? Would you say they're demonic or anything? So I guess apparently this guy, his brand is somewhat like he has like a Christian branding, and he's trying to show how he's able to do that while being this kind of very socially liberal person.
Mhm.
Another person says, I grew up in a similar church environment and I'm sad I lost my faith for the reasons you said. So there you go. I think what you're seeing there, that got 35 likes, by the way. So what I think you're seeing here is a person who's given an apologetic that people find convincing for why you could stay in there. And this person saying, man, I shouldn't have left. I left for those very reasons that you pointed out, like the heteronormativity, etc. These are the
Mm.
reasons why I left. And I'm sad now that I've seen your video. You see what I mean? So I think
Yeah, it just doesn't resonate with me because the reasons why those people are leaving would not have been reasons why I left, and the reasons why he's staying would not be reasons why I would stay. So it's for me, it feels foreign, even though there probably are very many. And I said this to somebody recently, and oftentimes when I see Black deconverted people, people who were Christians, Black people who were Christians, I almost don't even want to say this because I don't know how to say it without sounding as judgy as I was when I was a Christian.
mm-hmm.
But I sometimes suspect their deconversion because I almost feel like when I was a Christian, I probably wouldn't have even considered you a Christian because you were not there for the theological reasons. You were there for the external trappings anyway. So
see,
you
now, there you go.
deconverted. Oh, go ahead.
There you go, Brady. You were too much of a Calvinist, right? That's the thing. No, I'm kidding. I'm just throwing the arguments they give to you. There. See, he got too heady in his face.
Yeah,
but look
I
where
mean,
he ended it.
Yeah, but that's why I made the comment I made about King and the civil rights movement. I often wonder how much of that was them learning how to talk the language of freedom, the language of justice in a way that would be palatable to Christians, and how much of it was they actually believed the Bible in a Protestant way. Because as a Protestant, now they could say, you would have been, they could say to me, Brady, you would have been so heavenly minded that you're of no earthly good. You would have been talking all about heaven and not trying to, have thy kingdom come here on earth. And maybe there's some pushback that's worth hearing there. But nonetheless, there is a sense in which Jesus's kingdom, once they realize that, oh, it's not going to pop off here. Oh, he actually was killed. And now we got to start talking about a resurrection. And now we got to start talking about him coming again. The kingdom now gets turned into this spiritual thing. Of course, the amillennialists will say, no, the kingdom is now. But either way, there's something.
I just had a perverse thought in the middle of your little thought there.
What?
It was like, since they're expert at finding ways at continuing the story, even when the story technically ended, like he got killed, like the story ended. And it's like, oh, he's gonna come back now. It's like, oh, okay. Now, wouldn't it be kind of funny if there was like a spoof where he comes back and he gets killed again? Like he gets killed again, and they're like, oh snap. Well, he's gonna come back again.
So basically, he becomes Kenny from South Park.
Yeah, it becomes this like infinite regress of like resurrections and deaths, like where you're just like.
I was making a point, man. Hold on.
Yeah.
my point though is, I just have a problem with certain people's deconversion if there really was no, like Jesus supposedly, said to Nicodemus, you must be born again. There's something about being born from above, this concept that if you never really embraced that you just wanted a better life here, but you never got into the Christian concept of this new life.
And you feel like that's what's going on with that, brother?
There's nothing in this conversation that would convince me that he ever was in for the reasons that the New Testament authors begin to give people.
See, now this is the reason why I brought him up. I agree with you, but I brought him up because I think when we are fighting kind of ridiculous theism.
Mhm.
What we're fighting, in on large measure, are a lot of people who are like him, who he's basically nominally Christian or culturally Christian, and he's basically self-admittedly that way. You know, he's like,
But I
hey, to
wouldn't have a
me.
problem with him. Like, to me, you're so liberal. You're not even progressive. You're
Mhm,
not really a Christian. You're
mhm.
using the church for what it did in the past, and you have an attachment to that.
So you don't
Maybe,
think so what's up with the cross around his neck? You think it's just like
well, even he
symbol?
said, like, yo, like I'm attached to the good it's done for Black people.
Okay, so it has nothing to do in your mind or
There's nothing that
his
he said that
with.
would make me think that. And I don't want to put words in his mouth. I'm taking what he
Didn't he say
said.
something about the spirit, people quote unquote catching the
He
spirit
grew up in a
and
church where they would sing the same song 3 times and the Holy Spirit
mm,
and all that. But he's talking about cultural trappings. The Holy Spirit is a phenomenon, not the third person of the Trinity.
mhm.
You know what I mean?
So
Like,
he's even his definition of what that is something you
yeah,
think that's
like to
totally.
me, you would leave it for the wrong reasons, and you were in it for the wrong reasons. So I don't even know. Like, I would have no problem with his version of Christianity, because to me, it's not Christianity.
So he's
It's
basically swapped out all of the essential content and just kind of replaced it with whatever he wants to
or
believe.
if he's ever had the essential contents. Like, that's the thing that I try to get away from doing. Like, so in my recent Life After Faith episodes, I stopped trying to make people prove that they were Christian. I asked them the question, why did you think you were a Christian? But I no longer argue with them about, well, the Reform would say this, or the Pentecostals would. I no longer try to get them to prove they were really in. Whatever they say, cool.
Would he
But
be
if
a guy you would be? It sounds like you wouldn't even be interested in him on them.
no, no, because to me, unless I heard a testimony that would make somebody else say, "Oh, you had the experience," because unless you've had the experience, your deconversion doesn't really matter to
So you
me.
basically need him to convert so you can deconvert.
Yo, I in my phone calls, in my counseling, if you can call it counseling with people,
Yeah.
I don't I have a hard time letting people talk about deconversion until I know they've actually converted in the first place. And here's why. Here's one of the main reasons why. I said this on the podcast way back in the day. If you deconvert now without ever having really converted, you still run the risk of someday somebody actually giving you the actual gospel.
Mhm.
And you, like, it happened to me when I was younger, when I was 15, 16. I had said yes to altar calls all during my time growing up. It never meant anything to me.
Mhm.
I just said yes because I didn't want God to see me saying no to whatever he was offering. I didn't know what the offer was. I just was saying yes.
Mhm.
Then at 15, 16, I actually heard and understood the gospel. And I said, yo, I never knew that's what the offer was. I never knew that's what the good news was. Had I deconverted before that point and then heard the gospel at 16, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Mhm.
if
Mhm.
you deconvert today, but you never actually were quote unquote saved, you never found yourself at the foot of the cross, sensing your need for a savior, and Jesus was it. You never had that experience. You were
Mhm.
churched, you caught the Holy Spirit, you were worried about going to hell, whatever the thing was that made you say, I'm going to get saved. But
So
you never go ahead.
your argument to this brother would essentially be like you don't need the church as badly as you actually think you need.
No, no. Like, we've got other ways to mobilize and to bring people together now. You don't need the Black church for that anymore. And like I said, I'm wondering whether or not the Black church even still does that.
Mhm. Mhm. That's an well. What about the how many did I have? I have two more videos queued up. You wanna throw another one of them?
Uh, do they tie into this, or do we need to wrap this combo up before we do?
We well, you pretty much wrapped it up. I wanted your take on it. I had watched it, and
But so then, what was your take then?
my take is it's essentially what yours is. I just think that the reason why I think it's relevant is because when you go about telling people, hey, you have to face the more or less godless, at least we can say that Christian God isn't here, reality that we're living in as human beings on this
Your voice is getting real low to me.
When
Here you go.
when we tell people you have to face the reality of the godlessness of this planet that we live on,
Mhm.
I think what you're contending with, like, I don't think that is as loosey goosey as you. I mean, he did describe it kind of loose, but I also, he says he needs it for, those really pragmatic reasons. But
Mhm.
obviously, I think it's also filling. He may have not articulated there, but I would imagine it's fulfilling some sort of spiritual portion, whether it's just the feel goods that he
Mhm.
gets when he goes there.
Mhm.
And I think that when you're coming with what you're coming with on this pod, that's what you're that's that's one of the things that people are going to have a hard that's what they have a hard time getting.
Hmm.
Basically what I'm saying. I think there are a lot of
Yeah.
people like him who may not even be as liberal as he is, but
Mhm.
it's still some element of that, like they're not trying to
Yeah.
let it all go.
I,
That's all
I,
I was
and
thinking.
I haven't run into many of them, but you all can let me know out there if you're out there and you find yourself holding on to, because I think it's very interesting. Like, the question they asked him was, "What is your relationship to Christianity?" And he didn't really talk about Christianity as much as he talked about church, and he
Mm.
talked about just some of the trends that you get from the Bible, but he didn't really carve out a Christianity, a denomination's stance or anything like that. So it's almost like I still don't know what his relationship is to Christianity other than
But remember, and that's why he's so important to this
mm,
discussion. Remember, when they do surveys and whatever, and they talk about how many Christians there's any number of people who would identify with this guy's position
yeah.
that are also in that boat where you're like, well, he's not a threat. Well, yeah, I mean, so when
Mm,
you've talked in the past about how the numbers for God get padded, I think the numbers for believers get
mm,
padded too, because I think there are a
yeah.
lot of people who are like him,
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
count as believers in America for whatever reason.
Yeah. That may very well be. And I may have to spend some time thinking about what do I think about the when I think about cultural Christians, I think about Caucasian folk more as cultural Christians. I think there's
Mm.
something about just what America is.
There are a lot
Um,
of black ones now too, though, for sure.
right. But when you throw somebody like him in my face, I don't even know if I would consider that cultural Christianity as much as I would consider it
Well, it's cultural in that he identifies with the iconography. He goes to church.
iconography. Yeah.
He will use the language. I'm sure if you ask that guy if he believes in God, he'd be like, "Yeah, I believe in God." He just believes that God can be molded into his own liberal kind of image,
Hmm.
and so he's not allowing the text. And there's some videos by Dan McClellan where he deals with, like we were just talking about, this univocal voice and stuff in the text that's
Hmm.
non-existent, and he does deal with certain things. And he's like, well, I think there was a video I watched from him where he was talking about homosexuality, and he was like, oh, the whole idea of a sexuality was not a thing
Hmm.
during the time period that scriptures were being written, so it never explicitly condemns any kind of sexuality, because that's a more contemporary or more modern
That's interesting because
that's
I feel like I would disagree with them on that, but I would like to
Well,
maybe we
maybe
can
that's a video we should
yeah,
bring up one
yeah.
of these days.
Rather than doing
But
another video, because we've been on for about an hour now, I have not been paying attention to the chat. It seems like y'all been having a great conversation in there.
I don't know if I want to get involved in that
Yeah, I'm not
conversation.
I'm not
You're
doing that, but
talking
I'm
about
I'm
the earth.
I'm just throwing it out there to anybody who's got any cues, any questions you want to throw at us. Um,
Yeah,
this is the last call for
sh
alcohol.
anything short of any conversation about like flat Earth and all that kind of thing.
No, no, no. We're not doing any of that. Alexander Velasquez, my guy. Those of you who've been following the series that I've been doing with Alexander, he's in the chat. What's up, Alex? Yo, it has been a while. I'm going to be putting up chapter 5 and chapter 6 discussions within the next month. But we do need to get back on it and dive into chapter 7 when you're ready. But yeah, I hope you're well too, man. I hope the school year is going well for you, and looking forward to connecting. Yes, Pragmatic Crystal is reminding folks you can super chat if you want your comment read, question read. Only questions I will not hold you to a super chat on is if there's somebody out there who really is struggling. You're looking at the front door. You're thinking about exiting Christianity, if you got a question or something you'd like us to speak on before we dip, I will read your question without having it have to be a super chat. So please feel free to do that. Other than that, we are going to stick around just for a minute or two for any super chats that do come through, or
I
any
like
other.
Chris Billups. He says they are definitely. I guess he means there are definitely a lot of Black cultural Christians. It just looks different. I think I agree with him.
Yeah.
He says, will you guys have it where people will? I think this is saying call in because it's being covered on my desktop. I think that's what.
Yeah. I said that a little while ago. I think I would like us to get to the point where people could definitely call in. We just need to do some troubleshooting on our end to see what that's like, and to have some people help to moderate that kind of stuff. But would definitely love to do that. I think we'll probably get more folks who are kind of on the fence, who may be willing to call in once we do that. So definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. It's almost as though you want your kinsmen of the flesh, so to speak. That's your target audience.
Yeah.
So guys like the guy I queued up in the last video, that's not really your target audience. You're reaching back to pull people out of the fire. That came from the same cauldron that you were in at some point or whatever. That's it looks like you're reading some chat.
I am, but also your voice, it got real low again. I couldn't make out part of what you were saying.
Got low. I'm actually stepping away from the mic some because I noticed how loud it was on the last one. But all right, you pull it up a little closer. Is this a little better?
Yeah, you're fine now. I'm also scrolling up looking for any super chats that
That's
we may have
better?
missed, if we missed
Okay.
any super chats. I don't say this
Yeah, I
enough,
didn't even look
y'all.
at the
So
concept.
super chats are open. Also, don't be a stranger. Like, subscribe if you're not subscribed. Michael Apple came through with the super chat.
Question for Brady.
Yeah.
What was the argument in science that did the most damage?
I don't know if Jay Witt is breaking up on you guys' end, but Jay Witt, you're breaking up big time on my end. I'm gonna read the
We
question
talked
again.
about the evolution thing being really big.
Question.
Okay. Can you hear me?
You were breaking up really
breaking
bad,
up?
but yeah, you and me are delayed big time.
Okay, I'm hearing you fine on my end, but maybe it's just yeah.
So you're back good now. Let me read Michael's question one more time. Have some money. Question for Brady. What was the argument in science that did the most damage to your faith? It really was seeing the way that the genetic comparison between humans and the other great apes, and seeing the way they trail off. So you have gorillas, orangutans, chimpanzees, and humans, and just seeing where they're close and where they start getting distant, how when these two branch off, these three still have similarity. Then when this third one branches off, these two still have similarity. Then you have chimps and humans left, and then humans branch off. But just seeing how similar they are before they begin to branch off, it just made it like, my thinking was simply, if that's true, because I'm not a geneticist, I don't know, but if that's true, this changes everything. And I was sitting there.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I think there may be some people who are not fully appreciating your argument here. So maybe you need to explain to them that the area where there's basically on the other great apes and us totally the same, like the area in our DNA where you can see there's a match in the DNA.
Right.
What is that indicative? Yes.
The gene code. Yeah.
So what is that an indicator of? I think that will help people understand a little more.
Yeah. So they map out the human genome, our whole, the sequence of our genome, over 6 million pairs of genes. They map it all out. and then they compare it to other species. And when you do that, you can kind of, you can see all the different little changes that have happened over the history of the species, because we bear those changes, whether it be a deleted gene, whether it be an inserted gene, whether it be a stop coding. These are all the things that happens when our genes are reproducing, and it leaves signs of its history. You can compare that to other species and you can see the same sign. So you might have a deleted gene in the same place as a dog, or the same place as a orangutan, or same place as a pig.
So let's pause there for a second. So that says that you have a common ancestor.
Right. It says that you're related in the ancestry, because either the same changes happen in all these different species at the same place in their genome, the same exact change. You're talking about tens of thousands of these in the same. Either these different species had the same changes occur, like what? Or all these changes occurred in an ancestor. So it didn't have to change 1,000 times. It had to change once.
So we'll say that simply for the people who are simple-minded. Basically, he's saying either you had a remarkable coincidence akin to Lot impregnating both of his daughters on successive nights, right? Like something that's just
even more. No, it's
even
more.
Yeah, it's even more ridiculous. And let's spell out that ridiculous coincidence. That would be a coincidence where at the same point in the genome you have the same sort of modification or whatever happen, the same change happening at the same place, which would mean that these two separate species experience the exact same thing happening.
And it would you're either talking about an external cause, the environment that would cause that change, or an internal cause, a mutation, but they go through the exact same change.
Or now this is where you apply Occam's razor. Which one is easier to explain? Like, is that an easier explanation, or is the easier explanation that they have a common ancestor, that where you have one creature where this happened?
Right. The change happened in one creature, and then their descendants share that change in their DNA. So that you can read about this stuff, because I'm not a science explainer, a science communicator. I just read this stuff and I take it in. I give it back out kind of in a gargled form. But we can link books and all that kind of stuff. But seeing that the relation between the great apes, that floored me, and it just made me say, okay, then Genesis 1 and 2 cannot be literal. There are all kind of ways you can go after that in terms of making it figurative.
Now, it's interesting to piggyback on what Brady, I know Brady, you're trying to get off of this live because it's been pretty long already, but it's interesting that Brady has noted that, and that was a huge dent in his faith. That was a huge dent in his faith. When you think about it, this is also one of the reasons why people like Tim Keller, rest in peace, who recently died, had to put together, or he felt the necessity of putting together a website and basically aggregating this scientific knowledge and saying, Christians, like, we don't want to be wrong again, like thinking this is a geocentric universe and stuff. We have to embrace this because the science is so clear that he felt like, so he's like, look, there are Orthodox, I think he would have referred to like B.B. Warfield. He would have referred to people from the past who
accepted evolution,
who accepted evolution. So he's saying the science is so clear and so compelling that it's not going to do it to try to argue against the science. So what we have to do is embrace the science and somehow figure out a way to synthesize or to syncretize the science with
right. And there are all kinds of theologians and Old Testament scholars and all that. And many of them would say, whenever science comes up with a finding that actually does, it doesn't disprove the Bible. What they say is, it proves to me that we've misunderstood the Bible. So they would never say the Bible is wrong. They go back and say, oh, what science has helped us do is it helps us realize that we've misunderstood. We were wrong. And that was one of the options I talk about in my book, is rather than saying the Bible was wrong, Christians can just say, oh, we understood it wrong. Now we've got to find a way to understand it in a way that includes what science is now telling us.
And that's what Sproul says on that MacArthur clip that I wanted us to watch, where he says that particular Christian apologist says, essentially says it's like, he did the calculations and said, you know, the earth is basically 4,000 and some hundred odd years old. And he's like, well, I'm not going to die on that hill. That's Sproul. Sproul's like, I'm not going to die on that hill, but I am a young earther, you know, it's in the vicinity, you know. So like, in other words, the specifics of the way he hashes out the science is wrong, but you know, we don't have to hold to his specific scientific interpretation, because that's not canonical. So essentially that's what and that's what Tim Keller is saying. The only problem with Tim Keller, the difference between that and the argument about the age of the earth, is that you can't make the origin of man non-canonical. You have the story in the text in Genesis, and then you have even in the genealogies they say that Adam is the son of God.
Right.
So and in fact, later theology develops on that, where they're like, he was the first son, and Jesus is the second son, and the idea is that he was not born, he was not the descendant of a natural process. He was created, basically created from the dirt. So and you know, you have Paul and a bunch of other people. So you don't have death entering. I mean, some people say, oh, well, that's not a problem. Well, when death ends up being the penalty for sin, but death ends up being the mechanism for evolution to actually take place, you have a theological problem, because death is seen as a punishment in the scriptures, and even Paul, he zeroes in and amplifies that more. But in evolution, death is just part of the natural process by which you arrive at humanity. So if you're a Christian evolutionary, if you're an evolutionary believer, the problem you have to contend with is that death is the mechanism by which humanity arises.
Right.
So it can't both be that and a punishment for some prior sin.
Right. Yeah. You know? And all that did was really, it opened the door for me to look at the Bible a different way. Once I began to say, okay, it can't be literally true, I had the options of saying, oh, so the authors may have been writing polemically. Oh, so they could have been, just speaking figuratively. Oh, they could have been doing a number of things. But one of the things it also left open was, oh, this could be religious propaganda. And once I put that lens on, so much else in the scriptures kind of fell into place. Like, I can't understand why God would tell them to go commit genocide and rape people. But if this is religious propaganda, I get it now. I get now why the scriptures look the way they look. It opened the door for me just to consider that I could be holding something very different than the words of God in my hands. I could be holding the words of men with a very clear, agendas in my hands.
And you know, for the, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Finish. For the people who want to argue against the science, just remember you're arguing against it in favor of a book that has talking donkeys in it and talking snakes, et cetera, et cetera.
But see, that doesn't do it for me, because if
I know it doesn't, but I know we've had this clash before. Right. But I'm just saying, like, for the person who believes that, it's not like they're walking down the street and there's a talking donkey ever. I mean, like, in other words, these are extraordinary claims. I'm going to die on the hill that's an extraordinary claim. When you say there was a talking snake or that's an extraordinary claim. It goes beyond. If there was a talking donkey anywhere on the planet right now, it would be all over TikTok, and it would be the talk of the town.
No, but somebody could put that on the same level as, you got trillions, billions at least, of planets and life on this one. Like,
well, I mean,
that's
an assumption. That's an assumption.
Right,
that's the assumption is that life is only here. That we don't know that to be the case.
True indeed. But just
and then you have the anthropic. You have the anthropic principle. Like, if you actually are here, then obviously you happen. Like, it's just like, like, that's not really it. Certain things don't have to be argued for. You don't have to argue for the sympathy of the environment to your existence. You are existing. So obviously you live in a place that's sympathetic to your existence, you know?
Yeah.
And however rare of an occasion that might be, well, it clearly happened because you're here, you know? So like, that's not, you know, but what I'm saying, when I'm looking at the ridiculous miracles in the Bible or the sun stopping in the sky, those are extraordinary, ridiculous claims. And I think it's, I don't want Christians or any other kind of theist to be able to take away how ridiculous that actually is. I mean, I think this is the problem with apologetics and debate. Sometimes we get so caught up in the debating that we fail to remember this is ridiculous. A talking snake is ridiculous. If you say this to a little kid, like that little kid in the TikTok that you sent us in the chat, a lot of little kids would just laugh at you. Say that didn't happen. That's ridiculous. You understand what I'm saying? I guess it's not holding any water. But
no, I get it. But there's a part of me, and I don't even know if this is the apologist or the believer. There's a part of me that just says, you've got something that we can't explain.
Yeah.
Life, existence. The very fact that we have anything that we can't explain means there can be other things that we can't explain. So I'm not one that will look at the talking donkeys and talking snakes and any of that and say, come on, that's ridiculous. If a God is the reason for any of the things we can't explain, then the God can be the reason for that. I don't trip over that stone. I trip over the. Go ahead.
I was coupling that with, it's like, okay, you're going to overturn all of our contemporary understanding of science, that and all of this, all of the wonderful engineering that we got that's based on it. You're going to say that it's all bunk.
Yeah, because
to support a book
that
is talking about donkeys, that talking and floating iron and all kinds of other stuff.
I got you.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying it's not like a singular argument by itself. It's just saying, like, listen to yourself. You're talking about a book that is making all kinds of ridiculous, a man walking on water, all kinds of other stuff that we just know is highly unlikely, for sure. And yeah, sure, miracles can happen if you believe in a miracle working God, for sure. But then you also have the bad science. You have the crazy coincidences and whatever else. Like I said, the impregnation, impregnating of Lot's two daughters, two days in a row, and that kind of thing. You have enough ridiculous stuff where it's obvious enough to reject it, along with the bad science that comes with it. It's not like you take this book and it's a totally sensible book, and it just so happens to say some ridiculous stuff about science too. Let's take them both and overturn all of the stuff we know that's true about the world.
Right.
No, I just think that those are just, I think that's a ridiculous way to live. And I don't think you have to be a scientist to debunk it. I mean, there's just enough science that you're using. I mean, the idea that there's some guy on a computer typing on the keypad, and we're getting the messages almost simultaneously, and all of that's dependent on science. Believe it or not, it's all dependent on engineering that's based on science. And the idea that could be going on, and the guy who's typing is actually typing arguments for a flat Earth and whatever else nonsense, I think it's just ridiculous. It's like, look at yourself in the mirror and understand how ridiculous you sound.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I get it.
That was a bit of a rant, but if I was going to preach anything, that's what I'm preaching. Like wake up, smell the coffee. It's time to let go. Like, unless you want to go toe to toe with the geologists and all of the rest of the biologists, etc. Unless you are prepared to do that, at least humble yourself in the face of people who are actually experts in the field. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, good points. Good points for sure. All right, I'm scrolling through the chats. I don't see any more supers, and I don't see anybody crying out for help. So we're going to end it there. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Spread the word. Tuesdays at 8:00 Eastern. We will be here looking to help people. Oh, wait. We didn't give any exit strategy advice tonight, but nobody actually typed in asking for any. So,
well, you can do that. I just gave.
No, I think we, whatever jewels we drop, you can mine the episode and find them. We'll be back on it next week. Much love. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you.
All right. Take it easy.
Yep. Peace.